zoning side, once you designate it as a special land use in that particular zoning district, it applies district-wide, as opposed to an overlay district, which is essentially you're creating a unique zone in which it can be located.
You're refining the district-wide. You can look at individual parcels within that district and say it belongs in some and it doesn't in others. The other approach is just broader and it treats everything in that district the same, regardless of what the conditions are in that district. So it's two different approaches. One's more refined and one's less refined.
But I would also say there's nothing that prohibits the city from creating multiple overlay districts as well. So when you're looking at an overlay district and it's either too big for this particular place where it is, you can shrink it down, you can make them somewhere else that may include multiple zoning districts within that overlay, if that makes sense. There are a lot of different options here for where the use can be located, but you need to decide, in essence, where you don't want it. Right, where that use would be inappropriate.
And going back to the concern about, okay, if somebody's looking at our community and they see this big yellow claw around downtown Cadillac, and we say that's where our homeless people can live, right? If we do it this way and we merely identify it as a special use within our ordinance, it becomes a lot less visible to anybody looking at our community. Would that be a true statement?
I don't know if it's less visible. What you would have is, like, let's just take an industrial district. And we'll say, well, in the industrial district, this is a use that may be properly located there, and we're going to limit it to solely the industrial district. So in the industrial district, it's an application by special use permit. Here are the criteria that have to be met. Anybody looking at your zoning ordinance who has any knowledge of zoning or development goes right to the zoning ordinance and says, this is the use I want. Is that use identified in the zoning ordinance, in this case a homeless shelter? Yes. And where can I locate it? In the industrial district. That's where I'm going to start my search for property, available location, because that's where it's located. And that goes on for any particular use, not just homeless shelters, but commercial uses, industrial uses, office uses. It's the same principle.
You know, another option, if you're at all interested, we have to, within a few months, come back and talk about all the kinds of shelters. If you felt comfortable making it part of the RM2 by special use permit, that would allow New Hope to move forward, and we could come back and revisit the whole concept of what district, or whether it's overlay or just by district. We could do it a few months from now when we bring back all the other regulations that are going to be proposed for all the other shelters. And that would give us much more time to do outreach that everybody seems to want to have, and that would give us a much stronger base. And the RM2 is a very strong multifamily district, and there's not a lot of area in it right now. So it would give us, it wouldn't be opening up everything to this use without consideration, just a very small area. And then we come back and we look at the whole thing more broad, and maybe we look at whether we treat them with different regulations or the same regulations, but at least we would have more time to examine it.
I think that is a really important thing that we need to do, and it also gives people, now that people are aware of this discussion, it gives people an opportunity to step into the process at the planning commission level and discussions, not when it's here with us. And so
I like the idea of putting something in place that would move New Hope's request forward in a timely fashion.
We need to allow them to make their move. But a lot of great information has been brought here tonight, you know, talking, and it truly, this zone does look like it's limiting to me as well. You know, Mr. Boston's example about, you know, well, maybe a shelter would want to locate if the right people came in the industrial area, but they couldn't. And I think this is awful limiting. But I do think we need to do something to help New Hope. And you've proven over the years that you are in neighborhoods and residential areas and you're not a problem. I was on the police department for many years. We did not have problems with your facilities, and we still don't. And so I don't think it's, I think allowing you the opportunity, on a more individualized basis on where you could do this is probably a better way to go.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, I know, I just heard you guys say that.
we agree in consensus that we'd like to move forward tonight. We're still stuck at the same, at the same step one, which is we don't have the zoning in place to allow the issuance of a special use permit.
Okay,
So-
let me ask you this. Is it possible for us to look at where they want to go? And can we designate that special use in that?
No, we
No,
can do this with this year.
That's what prompted all of this.
Right.
That's what prompted the whole necessity to amend the zoning code, because we couldn't just grant that special use when the application from them came forward. That's why we're here. I think that's why it came through the whole process. I think theoretically anyways, the Zoning Enabling Act says that you can adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission with or without amendment. Theoretically, you could say, well, we're going to reduce the size of the overlay to the RM district, but I wouldn't suggest that you do it that way.
Then why did you say it?
Because you can do it. You can.
I'm kidding.
You can reduce it to
But
just...
we wouldn't recommend it.
But I don't think, I think when you're talking about zoning and you're talking about land uses, you need to adopt a comprehensive set of rules that apply to everybody. And unfortunately, if you want to make changes, I think it needs to go back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing to think about other alternatives. I think so.
And that stifles the New Hope shelter from
It just delays. I mean, I don't know what their timeline is, but yeah, it will be a one month, maybe probably 2 months
Probably
delay.
6 months ago.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon. This happens all the time. I think it's also important for the city council to recognize as well that even your own feedback and the feedback that you've heard from both sides of the zoning-related issue was not against New Hope moving forward with their plans. I'm sure New Hope also heard that as well, if they're looking at the future of the project, that at the end of the legislative process for this, it's going to be done in a manner that's going to accommodate that use.
It's very important, yeah.
So,
Okay.
what I think, I just want to make sure we capture correctly is that presumably the city council will motion to remand this issue back to the planning commission as discussed and briefed. Mike, under the comments that you had made with that? That'd be fine. All right. And then the planning commission will pick this up at their January meeting, and then this will be back presumably to the city council at the first meeting in February.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to amend it back to the planning commission for them to take up without, and do you hear our recommendations or?
Was that to just consider the RM2 as a eligible district for the special use permit for a homeless shelter? Is that what we're talking about?
And the other districts, John.
All of the districts.
I think that would just muddy the waters, because as I said, we have to bring up it's just going to get lost in a 3 to 4 month ordeal if we do that. I think it's simpler to just consider whether that one district is sufficient for right now, and then come back in 3 months and decide what we want to do with it. Because we got all these other layers to deal with, and it's going to take time. And to do one on its own without the others.
Well, yeah, I think you're confusing the homeless shelter use versus the other shelter uses that are out there. So the focus is still going to be on the homeless shelter use, not necessarily combining all of the tea house uses or the other.
But I think one begets the other.
I get it, but we're just focusing on the one use right now. So.
But can we just not look at that one district?
We're going to look at all of them.
Well, it's going to delay it. It would be my thought.
Okay, so, did we make the motion?
We have a motion, and we need a second.
Does somebody
I don't
support?
want the motion.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm not sure what,
The motion was to remand it back to the planning commission to analyze or reanalyze the other zoning districts and whether or not the overlay use could be or should be applied to other districts within the city. That was essentially,
That was
essentially
correct.
what Mike
Yeah.
had briefed. So,
okay, all right. That's
That's the motion?
the motion.
Okay.
support.
I'd rather see us go the other way and
Yeah.
approve what was proposed today with just restricting it to RM2.
Okay.
And then have it go back and come back with it amended.
Okay, so we...
Because otherwise it's going to
So I
take
withdraw my-
so
I
many
withdraw my-
months.
I withdraw my...
You don't have to withdraw it, it's on the floor, we
Oh,
can vote on it.
We can vote.
I'm just telling you how I feel, so you know why I'm voting the way I am.
Okay.
All right,
That
so,
makes more
Okay.
sense. That
Unless
makes
you want to
more
withdraw
doable.
it before a vote, I don't know.
I would like to withdraw before that.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
fine.
that's so much more doable. Would you make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the amendment to the zoning code as presented with the elimination of all of the overlay except for the RM2.
Are you remanding this, or are we just approving this tonight? I'm sorry.
Can we approve it that way?
You could?
Yeah.
And then ask them to work on what
In the
we
future?
are requesting.
Yes.
for future uses?
Future uses, yeah.
And that would move things along?
That would.
Would it create, an issue that we're not seeing?
I think you are mixing and matching concepts that may not,
I think it needs to go back to
They
the
may not-
planning commission.
we don't have time right now to talk about. So for example, if you're talking about adding to the RM2 district homeless shelters, then that requires amendment to your definitional section defining what a homeless shelter is, adding it as a special use permit to the RM2 district, that it's a use permitted by special use permit, and then amending your special use permit section to add those standards that would apply to that use in the RM2 district.
I think it really needs to go back to the planning commission, to be carefully thought out. I don't think that we should be cramming this through just to take care of that small piece, although it's a big piece, I realize.
Can I do a point of order, Mary? If it was the specific zone,
No.
you would have to reopen the public hearing.
I don't think that that's likely.
Okay.
I mean, the overlay district was discussed at the public hearing at the planning commission level as part of dealing with this homeless shelter use, which included portions of the RM2 district. Certainly the council can adopt it under the Zoning Enabling Act with or without amendment, without further public hearing. So I think they could confine that to the RM2 district. But again, I think that when you get into, there are other portions of your zoning ordinance that you would have to add, for instance, the standards under the special use section that you simply don't have time to do tonight to see where those fit in under this different sort of process. Because the overlay district as proposed has those standards put right in that overlay district. Here, we got to take now, if the planning commission is going to recommend something else, you have to take those standards applicable under a special use permit process and now put those in your special use section under your existing ordinance.
So really,
we couldn't just adopt the overlay just for RM2, the way it's presented.
You could probably adopt, you could configure the boundaries of the overlay district to apply to the RM2 district. But if you look at, I'm not sure whether or not that covers the entire RM2 district either, not only in...
You can tell on this map.
And how you're going to redraw the boundaries right here and now.
you know, I think that Mayor Falcon is correct in saying that that we need to send this back to, though I hate to send it back to Planning Commission, because there's a lot to consider and think about, and they're the ones who are focused on this specific thing. So instead of passing a portion of this or putting something else, although your motion is I'm leaning towards that we just need to send it back where they know what needs to be done to make it. And understanding our thinking on this, you understand that, right, John? And that where we're going with this and why we're thinking the way that we're thinking on it. So I think given that information, go back to the Planning Commission with the ones whose expertise is this, and then have it come back to us when they get it. With our input, after having had our input.
Well, and truly with the Planning Commission, you know, on another project that we were working on recently, we formed a smaller group of individuals that did some work, some research, did some work outside of the regular Planning Commission meeting to bring the process along quicker. So there's no reason in my mind that we couldn't do the same thing with this. So, would someone like to make that motion?
You're going to
We
read
have a
it.
motion on...
Oh, this is on...
No, we don't.
He didn't make it.
Then I'll make a motion to remand this back to the Planning Commission, along with notes on our thoughts on this topic.
Support?
I'll support it.
Was that motion, or...
It was supported by...
I supported it.
Councilmember Meinhardt?
Yes.
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Councilmember Spellman?
Yes.
Councilmember Wolfow?
Yes.
Mayor Falcon?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Anyone need some water?
No,
I haven't opened mine
thank
yet.
you.
Sherry? you-
I know I sound like I do, but...
Sound like your brother.
I think the concern is that it's a tight turnaround, how wide the breadth of the...
I did that. I realize that might stall their plans a little bit, and they want to get in the bottom line, pull up the road. Yeah, it's not, we're trying to stop them. We're trying to make it so it's easier. Well, it could be easier for them in the future if they have another resident who somebody wants to donate.
Yes. Okay.
Because I would like...
That's for 5 minutes.
Light industrial. Well, as I thought that would be a good loss if they had information. No, he was